we'd like to welcome you to our first plein air class that I know of in my history of being with the Guild. My name's Christina, and I'm president of the Art Guild, and all of the correspondence that you guys have been receiving has been from me. Jakub.
Hi.
Kubo, you can call him whatever you want.
So my name is Jakub, which is also Jacob, but the short version of Jakub in Czech is Kuba. So I get called Jakub, Jakub, Jacob, Guba, Cuba, Kuba. Some people call me by my last name, which is Kukla. So any of those work for me. Whatever is easiest for you is just fine. And Christina, who I used to call Miss Erickson, was my art teacher in high school. So thank you so much. It's kind of full circle, which is really exciting to be here. And so we're here to paint outside. How many of you guys have painted in plein air? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, wow, that's surprising. So it's about half and half. That's great. So a new experience for many of you. The way that we're going to do it today, we're going to start off by just taking about 15 minutes to go and do little thumbnail sketches to kind of think about compositionally what you might want to paint. And they're basically just like literally 10 to 15 second sketches of like what a potential composition could be. So I'm looking at lights and darks, I'm looking at distance, I'm looking at what shapes are going to be in there. Am I focusing more on triangles or squares or circles or whatever? And you just kind of want to do quick little sketches on there. And it's also just a really good way to warm up and kind of get your hand moving a little bit so that when you get to the canvas and actually start, you feel a little bit loosened up. The style that I start with is typically very, very loose. So I'll flood the whole canvas with one color, then I'll do some sketches on top of that compositionally. Sometimes I'll erase it and redo it like 10 times until I like it, move things over, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll kind of build up from there. That is not the only way to do plein air. Some people like to sketch it out on white canvas, and then they start with the background, with the sky, and then they slowly move their way forward, adding more pigmentation as it gets closer to you. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this. None of them are right or wrong. Don't feel like you need to do things the way that I'm gonna be showing you. Just use it as inspiration to like experiment and do what feels good to you. Just trust your personal art process and allow it to be what it is. So with these French easels, I will raise this up as high as I can usually so that it's kind of eye level with what I'm painting rather than like lower or higher. So then you're just looking next to what you're painting rather than like having to go up and down or down and up. And that makes it a lot easier for your brain to kind of like compute. I will bring a bunch of colors and then I'll narrow it down to 3. A red, a yellow, and a blue, depending on what I see. Today I'm gonna go with the cobalt blue, this sort of like magenta, and like a brighter yellow. And then if I need to, maybe I'll introduce more colors later, but we'll see what happens with just these 3. It also allows me to be looser so that later there's no white shining through. And I don't have to be like, shoot, I missed a spot. I have to like fill that in and like get rid of like a beautiful single brush stroke because there's already paint on there that sort of like adds to that depth. So I would literally get my brush wet, dip it in, and just cover the whole entire canvas. Sometimes in this stage, I'll actually start sketching my composition out to mentally kind of have an idea. First initial layer, if you like to have the edges painted, is also a great time to cover those edges with something. And then later you don't have to do it in studio and it just kind of like makes one less step.
How would I interpret plein air with my own words? Well, first I think it's important to state that plein air is a French term, which just means like basically open air, and it refers to the practice of painting outdoors directly from what you're looking at.
What do you say, vermilion and what other red?
What originally drew me into plein air painting? There were 3 times that I ran into plein air painting before I ever did it myself. First time, I was probably still in middle school, and there was someone teaching a plein air class, and I just thought it was the coolest thing to see people painting landscapes real time. It was very inspiring to see, especially being someone who likes to spend so much time outdoors. So to combine 2 things that I love of being outside and painting was very, very intriguing. And I remember feeling very drawn to wanting to do the same thing, and also very surprised looking at all the paintings that people were working on and seeing how simplified they were. For some reason, plein air painting always really spoke to me, and I've always loved landscape painting too. And I've also always been more drawn to paintings that from a distance look like real life, and then you get close and they're very abstract seeming, which is typically what painting in plein air does. What is the greatest thing I've learned from plein air painting? Plein air painting can be really challenging because there's so many steps to it. So I think patience is a big part of it. Observational skills, obviously. The ability to simplify things down to their essence. I think perseverance is another thing that plein air painting does. And also learning to let go of things. Supposedly Michelangelo said that a painting is never finished, it's just abandoned, and I think plein air paintings are a wonderful example of that, because the way I like to do it, when I leave the location, the painting is done. I feel like art has a lot to do with capturing the moment, energetically speaking, and you sort of get, a lot of times at least, I will get into a certain mindset or a certain trance when I'm painting. Really hard to recreate that in a different space. My art very much is a reflection of where I am emotionally and where I am physically too. My advice is simplify, simplify, simplify. Less is more. Fewer colors, fewer objects, pick a few things to focus on and eliminate the extra things that aren't necessary. The point of plein air painting is not to recreate exactly what's there. It's to capture the essence of what's there. It's to capture feeling of what's there. It's to capture the emotion of the moment.